Welcome to season 3 of my best campaign. I'm Amanda Lee Smith. Happy to be back. We took a little rest and reset, and here we are, season 3 with a new theme song by Shimon Machida. And honestly, I'm thrilled that our first guest of the year is Danny Segal. Danny was the first creative director at Huckberry, and for me, that brand has always set the standard for documentary content. And we got to talk in depth about how they kept the stories at Huckberry simultaneously real and aspirational, kind of just like Huckberry, the brand itself. Today, Danny is the VP of Brand and Culture at Brahmi, which you're about to learn all about. And he's led brand at Rothy's, Rudy's Barbershop, Free Fly Apparel, and even did his time agency side at Edelman. As always, we covered a lot in our chat. The role of IRL events in the world of AI, how a food brand can show up as a hospitality brand, how to create guardrails so you're not trying to be everything to everyone, and just what was the secret sauce at Huckberry and how did they find it. Danny lives in the Bay Area. He's a dad, a surfer, a DIYer, and I think you're going to love him and get so much out of his perspective on content and brand. All right, Danny, you and I got connected through Karen Wasser, and you two now have something in common. You're both leading brand at fast-growing CPG companies that are, I think, targeting modern moms. But that's not how you two got connected initially. I love hearing the overlap in this industry. How did you two know each other?
Yeah, really funny. Karen and I actually went to college together at University of Maryland. So I knew her 20 years ago now, which gives my age away, I guess. But yeah, and it's so cool to see people you knew at a past life and what they're doing now and kind of like doing amazing, huge things. And, you know, we've like reconnected a couple times throughout the years, and it's been awesome to kind of reconnect with her again and kind of been able to pick her brain a little bit, knowing that she's in this space and an expert at all things CPG, and it's a little bit newer for me. So it's been awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you're new to the CPG space.
I am.
You are VP of Brand and Creative at a company called Brahmi. From what I understand, we are all going to be obsessed with lupini beans in the year ahead. Tell us about Brahmi and what you're up to there.
Yeah, the lupini bean is crazy. If you look at the history of this bean, it's kind of like the first superfood in some ways, or one of the early superfoods. Egyptian pharaohs were buried with lupini beans in their tombs, and then like Roman warriors used to carry it on them as like their source of protein and fuel when they were fighting battle.
It's like the original goo packs.
Yeah, basically, exactly. Yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of ultra runners using lupini beans this year. But it's this amazing legume that has tons of protein and fiber. It almost has this like eggy texture and quality to it. So when you mix it with wheat to make pasta, it creates this kind of like beautiful pasta that has a real pasta taste, but has the macro benefits of a protein better for you pasta. And Brahmi's like kind of this amazing thing. Like I hadn't heard of them before and got reached out to by a recruiter and talked to them for a while. And it just was this really natural fit because A, they want to be a lifestyle brand in the CPG space, which I find so interesting.
Yes.
And B, like their vision is A, like recreating the world of pasta, like becoming the new standard in pasta. And this idea that like you don't have to choose anymore between like good for you pasta and real pasta, which is seen as a guilty pleasure a lot. And that there can be the best of both worlds. And then also like our founder has this amazing story of growing up, going to Italy and that experience and how it kind of taught him about food and culture, and really trying to bring like that feel and redefine Italian food in America and get it away from being this guilty pleasure where I feel like you talk to so many people who will go to Italy and they're like, oh, I ate pasta every day and I felt so good and it was amazing. And then they come back here and they view it as this kind of like guilty pleasure thing they don't want to touch. And we're like, hey, you can have this every day and feel totally fine and be happy with what it's providing for you. And then behind all of that, like the thing I love the most is what I've been saying a lot internally is like, we're not a food brand, we're a hospitality brand. And we're trying to build a hospitality business in the CPG space where like truly our mission is like connecting people at the dinner table and the role of food in our culture, which I think is just super exciting and kind of endless. And food has been my passion since I was a kid. Like I grew up cooking with my mom. I almost went to culinary school a few times. It's been this like kind of hidden thing that I've loved forever. And to be able to have that be all of a sudden my career has just been amazing.
Yeah. So making that, or not even making that shift, but just deciding that it's a hospitality brand. Can you do that without physical spaces?
Well, we talk a lot about physical spaces. There's a future where we have some presence in physical space, I would say. I think part of it too is like experiential and how events can activate that a bit. I'm a big believer that in real life events are just like kind of the secret sauce to a lot of brand experience. I think digital is fine. It's great. It reaches lots of people. It's targeted. It can be beautiful and wonderful. But there's something magical about actually physically touching and feeling a brand in person. And I think it speaks a lot to what we're trying to do at Brahmi. One of my like big things I talked about when I started joining was there's this world of AI, obviously, that's everywhere. And that's great. But I think food is one of those like last very human things. And I love this idea that like we are a brand that brings people physically together at a dinner table or wherever they're sitting and eating. There's something so ritualistic about food and eating as a family or with friends and like what that provides and does. I talk a lot about how every Friday, my family and my brother's family that's down the street, we do Shabbat as like a collective family. And like, it's really just about an excuse to get together and gather and kind of like talk about the week and eat an amazing meal together. And just what food provides and unlocks in that world, I think is what the brand's magic is going to be.
When you look at a ritual like Shabbat too, it's so deliberately lo-fi.
Yeah.
And if we keep bringing that type of ritual into our meals, like AI is never going to co-opt that.
Totally. Exactly. And I like don't want to talk trash about AI, but I do think that like there is still a need for human connection and interaction.
It's going to come for you.
I know, right? Exactly. It's coming for all of us, but we are people at the end of the day who need human interaction. And like that can't only live in digital spaces. It has to live in physical, real spaces. And to be able to create that experience or continue to have that be something that we're focused on, I think is just really important.
Okay. When you and I talked a little while ago, you told me one of your goals for the brand was to build a world. And world building, I feel like it's getting a lot of chatter these days. And I know my team's talking about it a lot. And AI is actually a tool that people are using to do a lot of that world building. What does that mean for you? What does world building mean for you? And how does it extend into what you're going to be doing at Brahmi?
I think it provides a lot of meaning for the brands. To me, in the CBG space right now, there aren't a lot of lifestyle brands. And I think that that actually can and should change a bit, where like we don't need to just be a commodity. We can mean so much more. Like to me, Brahmi can be an escape for people. It can transport you. Like we have this idea of transporting you daily to La Dolce Vita and the good life. And like, even if that's just for a moment, capturing that feeling and what that looks like. Our founder's story is really interesting because it comes from this place of like that transportive feeling of being in Italy. And he was like, I want to share like how I feel when I'm at my grandparents' house in Italy, making pasta or running in the fields or whatever he's doing with people every day, and like do that through food because it's the easiest way to unlock that kind of emotion and memory. Like you take a bite of something, you're transported back to a place, a time, a feeling, a memory you have. Like I have so many foods where I'm like, oh my God, that takes me right back to like when I was 10 and I had that first bite of this thing. And I love the ability to create a world around that and use that as a storytelling capsule for us, but also just to kind of like, give people an excuse to enjoy this moment and to enjoy the food and enjoy what we can provide them.
What are those nostalgic foods for you? What are the
God.
things that just like take you right back?
So many. Okay. So one of them is definitely like a proper soft serve ice cream. I grew up going to the beach in Margate, New Jersey. Like my family's both from Atlantic City. I have a lot of deep roots on the East Coast. And there's a local ice cream spot. My mom actually worked at 2 Cents Plain as like an ice cream scooper back when she was a teenager. And like, we'll go there and getting like a proper ice cream cone on a hot summer day, like takes me back to being 10 instantaneously for sure. There's the classics, like a good bagel that I can't get on the West Coast anymore. And I can live with that. But yeah, that's definitely one of them for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I was trying to think of mine and I was like, oh, mac and cheese, because it meant mom and dad were out for the night and we were with a babysitter. So we just got to let loose, which kind of ties into pasta. Are you guys doing a mac and cheese at Brown, or is there going to be like a prepackaged?
There are things coming.
I think so. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't want to give anything away.
I can say we're exploring new categories.
Love this.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's keep looking backwards and work our way back in your career a little bit. You had an interesting start to your marketing career. I want to hear about your time at Rudy's Barbershop. So anyone that has spent time on the West Coast, especially in the Pacific Northwest, knows Rudy's. There's actually one just like a 5-minute walk from where I am in Portland right now. It's all over Seattle and Portland. But a barbershop is really not the place you'd expect to cut your teeth in creative or a business you would associate with career growth. Tell me about that.
So I'm going to even take us like a little bit further back for a second, because My career has been this not zigzag line completely. Like I like truly believe in that for creative and brand people. I
Me
think
too.
like experience makes all the difference. And like you can have 30 years of experience in the CPG space or outdoor space or whatever. But I actually think that multifaceted background helps a lot in terms of how you think and approach problems and brand strategy.
Mm,
So I graduated school sports medicine and thought I was gonna like maybe become a doctor or something in like sports world. And then I had this moment where I was like, maybe I'll go to culinary school, and just wasn't quite sure. And ended up working in politics. And it was like at the time where social media was becoming this like new exciting thing. Like Twitter was new, Instagram was about to come out, like everything was new and exciting. And the congressman I worked for was like, you can run our social media, go for it. So I like built a website and like launched his Twitter and tweeted as the congressman, like for him with his like direct words. And like they trusted a 21-year-old to do all of this. Like no one knew
wild.
the power of the internet at this time.
Mm,
And it was just like such a unlock for me. I was like, oh, I really love this like crafting a narrative and message and the media side of things. So found my way into PR and ad agency world from there and got lucky enough to work across like a bunch of amazing big clients, the REIs, Starbucks, Microsofts of the world once I was in Seattle. And what I realized was that like I loved brand strategy, I loved creative work, but a lot of times at these bigger companies, like you'd have this idea that would just slowly mold into something that became a little bit more middle of the road, I would say. And I knew like my personality, smaller brands is where I wanted to cut my teeth. I wanted to
yeah.
go into a place and own everything soup to nuts, maybe because I'm a little bit of a control freak. I don't know. But also because I wanted to try and like really try push and create interesting work and like see where the boundaries were versus having to fit into an existing structure and system. So that's kind of what led me to Rudy's. It was a really weird wild card role for me. But like as you said, storied brand in Seattle. I met the founders who were the former Ace Hotel founders, the CEO, Brendan Lynch at the time, who was just this amazing people person who came from this amazing retail background.
Mm,
And they sold me on the vision. Like they were total artists. They like wanted us to fly loose. Part of the ask was like, we're going to go open a bunch of retail locations, but also like we want to build a men's and women's grooming and beauty business. So launch a website, build out packaging, build us a brand, create products. Like all of that was part of the role. And honestly, like I stay to this day and people kind of laugh, but like it's the most creative job I've ever had. It
hmm.
was, there were like no guardrails of what we could do. And within that, we kind of like got to explore and really push the needle on ideas. And also like it was truly the first purpose brand I worked for.
Wow.
And it was really cool. Like the founders really believed in LGBTQ rights. And like we did all kinds of purpose campaigns to support the community. They like stood behind what they felt. They like really, really had passion for these ideas. And that was an amazing experience to have as well, where I could see how purpose could drive a brand forward and like really capture a community and get people engaged about it. Like people who love Rudy's love Rudy's. Like they were
Yeah.
live or die by Rudy's Barbershop. And to get to experience that passion was amazing. And honestly, like I look at it a lot now because talk about an in-person brand, like literally haircuts, you have to go sit in a chair and talk to someone and be there physically until they create robot barbers at some point.
Mm.
And it was really cool to get to experience the customer that way and get to feel what a like in-person experiential brand actually looks like.
Yeah. You said three things that really stood out to me. And I think when you combine them together, I mean, I'm thinking back to the most satisfying and creative jobs I had, and they had all of these three things. The first thing that you said was just they let you fly loose. So a lot of empowerment and maybe like not too much infrastructure that was already in place.
Yes, no infrastructure whatsoever.
The second one was like purpose.
Yeah.
So a purpose beyond haircuts, right? Something bigger. And then the third one was a super targeted community. Like you knew that you guys were going after a certain audience. It wasn't, you're not targeting everyone.
Totally.
It sounds like it was really focused on a specific niche. And so the guardrails were really clear of the community and the purpose, but then you had just like a lot of freedom in between.
Exactly. Well, and I think that's the magic, right? Is when you have these clear guardrails where you like know exactly who you want to talk to and you know exactly what you stand for, you can be as creative as you want or as loose as you want in that space because you have the guardrails on either side to keep you focused. I think it's way safer that way than when you want to be everything for everyone. You don't necessarily have a purpose that's core to what the brand actually believes in. and you're kind of artificially trying to create this community and sense of things that like customers see and people see right past that immediately.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that way. It's like if you stand for something, you need to actually stand for that thing. But also like when push comes to shove, you got to fall back into that. And like, that's how you make all of your decisions. And as a brand leader, that's what I spend so much time thinking about and talking about with my teams is like focusing us, but also like, do we actually believe in this thing? And like, if we do, we have to fight tooth and nail for this to be the case. Then we cannot give up anything.
Yeah. I wrote something a year ago, just after the election, just about how that was a moment when you really saw who stood by their brands, because a lot of folks that had maybe, had a DEI focus or an environmental focus were suddenly backpedaling because it wasn't safe or trendy or in favor with the powers that be. And, those wishy-washy brands, I think, are going to fall by the wayside.
I think people see right past it, and like maybe not like in the moment, but over time, it kind of like evens out and people start to see like who the lasting people are. It's why Patagonia, I think, has been so amazing for so long, because say what you will about them, they stick to their guns and really kind of all of their purpose and everything they stand for has stayed consistent throughout. And their messaging has stayed that way and their storytelling has stayed that way. And I think like they deserve massive kudos for that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's talk about another brand that had a big impact on your life, Huckberry. This is the one I want to spend some time talking about today. Yeah. You caught my eye on LinkedIn, partly because of the connection to Karen, but also because, if I'm not mistaken, you were the first creative director at Huckberry. Now, when I was in-house at a brand, I was managing brand content, and truly Huckberry was like the benchmark that we were consulting all the time. We were always paying attention to what y'all were doing. I was constantly on that site. Give me the lay of the land. What was happening when you got to the brand and where did you take it?
I remember like still like getting that first call from Ben O'Meara, who's now Chief Brand Officer at Huckberry. And I was like, they want me to interview for this job? Like, what? Like, I work at a barbershop, but like, I was such a Huckberry fan and dream job, like truly.
Yeah.
It's such a unique opportunity. I came in there, as to your point, like as the first ever like official creative director. And the brand had been around for like 8 or 9 years at this point. And there was an amazing team in place, like true creative visionaries, amazing art directors, amazing photographers. One of the things that Huckberry did that I thought was so amazing was grow people throughout the brand. So like Bryson Malone, our staff photographer, was a CX rep who shot photos on the Tide and now is like a huge deal art director and photographer in the outdoor and kind of fashion space. And we had these in-house photographer and art director and designer talents who just were like best in class. So inheriting that team was like a little intimidating. And B, I knew that like part of my job was to be like the person with the highest EQ possible, because I had to bring them along for the journey. Like you come in, you're going to change things. You're going to like put a little bit of process in place, which people don't necessarily love. And I had to kind of convince people to come along for the journey with me as much as possible, because I never felt like my job was to come in there and be like, I'm the top dog creative. I have the vision. I have the ideas. I honestly think a lot of times being a creative director, your job is like bringing process to the table, because I'm like a big believer in left and right brain creative thinking, where I just think like process focuses work. And it actually creates better work because of that, because you have, to my point again, a guardrails to create within a space. So I often focus like a lot of my early days on like, what is the process that's going to allow us to be creative and do good work? And at Huckberry, that was my true first focus, was just coming in and building process for my team to be able to do what they needed to do. And then the other piece of that was like, okay, you guys are amazing. We have process in place. How do we start to scale and, evolve our storytelling and think bigger and do like true campaign work, which I think part of the big ask for them was they had been doing, Huckberry's always owned the holidays. They've always owned these moments. We were doing so much, and we really wanted to evolve into like, how can we have larger campaign moments, larger collaborations, bigger storytelling impact, and then evolve as a media company. And that was what I spent so much of my time thinking about and working with an amazing team to do. But yeah, talk about a magical company. Like the founders have always been one step ahead of the curve, and like they still are doing that to this day, which is awesome to see. And, it's funny because I still am like really good friends with a lot of my Huckberry folks, and that network is so strong, like seeing where people have gone or the people who are still there. It's just like, it's such a good creative community to have. Those are kind of the people I'm always bouncing ideas off of. It's where I've met the mentors in my life. It's where I've mentored a lot of people and still continue to. And I just love having that kind of like almost collegiate fraternal experience with people.
Yeah. Okay. So you brought a few things. You brought And I think this is actually a really good recipe for any creative director that's coming in. EQ. So just like the emotional awareness to know how to manage probably a lot of different creative personalities.
Yeah.
You brought process, and then you brought scale. So you mentioned doing bigger campaigns after maybe like, a history of just being kind of everywhere all at once. Was it like better, but less, or were you keeping the same cadence, but just going bigger?
It was a little bit of both. The cadence kept going. And I think my kind of goal was you have to let some things just kind of be like lightweight and happen. Like we were a company that was going to constantly be launching things. We had an email cadence we were going to stick to. We had a number of product launches that were going to happen. But I wanted a lot of our creative energy going to the bigger moments and these tentpole moments and really giving those the juice they needed. But then also like the lifespan, not having it be, we're going to launch this and then 2 days later, we're going to move on to the next thing, which I think, had been the case for a while. We really tried to celebrate and regurgitate and reshare content. And they've gotten so good at that. But that was like a learned skill we had to work on, was like, how often can we talk about something? How many times can we feature it in an email newsletter? Like, what does the paid strategy on YouTube and kind of Instagram look like? Like all of those pieces. And that was where we put a lot of energy and effort, was kind of like building out that world.
Mm-hmm. You said a question that I think every marketer asks when they're in-house at a brand, which is, how often can we talk about this one thing? I get that question from clients all the time. And, you're so saturated when you're in the brand. You're like, I've been working on this campaign for 3 to 6 months, maybe even a year if it's a really big one. I'm so sick of it. I've made all these assets. What do you think is there a point of saturation for consumers when you're like, okay, we got to draw the line? Like, how many touch points do you think is okay for one campaign?
I don't know that I've ever found the point of saturation, which is crazy. I think you're right. You get so sick of it internally, especially creative teams or brand teams. Like, you've been working on it for months or years sometimes, and then it finally launches. And I've always feel like it launches and I'm like, okay, what's next? And it's like that weird feeling of like, I've been staring at this one photo or this video for like months now. So you're already trained to be like moving on to the next thing. But for your audience, like, it's new, but also like they could see it 3, 5, 6, 7 times and it's going to feel like somewhat fresh, maybe familiar, and that's okay. I think as long as you have other things around it to support it. Like, I wouldn't say you can shoot some photos and then for 6 months, those are the only photos you're going to use and you can rely on that. But I think that you can turn back to the best-in-class stories, the best-in-class experiences, the best-in-class content you have time and time again.
Listen, maybe you fell into this very common trap. Your brand grew a ton in the early days of COVID. People were spending money and you couldn't stock product fast enough. And then the hangover hit and you were stuck with inventory that just wouldn't move. You started discounting, you started leaning on performance marketing, and today you're still stuck in this cycle of paying to acquire new customers month after month. Your brand is starting to show up as a commodity and you want to get out of the discounting trap and finally make your comeback. Well, we want to help you build a cult brand, the kind that people will go out of their way for and that they'll pay more for even when they have other options. I'll tell you exactly where your comeback starts, and it might surprise you because it's not an expensive campaign and it's not even a brand refresh. It starts with your brand voice. A powerful brand starts with giving your fans a shared vocabulary. A shared vocabulary creates shared identity, and that's how cult brands start. If you know it's time to stop chasing customers and want to create real lifelong fans, my team at Monday Creative can get you there. See how we've done it for brands like Keen, Lululemon, Adidas, and Arc'teryx over at mondaycreative.co. All right, let's talk about some of those best-in-class stories. Yeah. So now I think a lot of us know the Dirt series that Huckberry created, and you actually hired Kate West, who went on to create that series, which has been incredibly successful. But before that, you were already really carving out that really special content niche and doing some interesting collaborations that I think we're going to talk about with Brad Leone, Ben Harper, Coors. Talk to me about what was driving those projects, and then maybe we'll dive deeper into one or two of them.
Like I said, like Huckberry was always a little bit ahead of the curve, I think, in thinking about content strategy. And I give a lot of credit to Andy Forch, like one of the co-founders of Huckberry, who just kind of always has his finger on the pulse from like a media standpoint of what was happening. But we knew as a brand, storytelling and content were going to be core to what we did no matter what. Like, we were a product company. We carried so many brands. We were the discovery for so many people of so many brands. We had our own house brands. Like, now that's a huge part of the brands. But we wanted to be that source of inspiration for guys to come and learn about brands and people and experiences and things and just kind of like live in the Huckberry world. And it's crazy. The engagement we saw on like email newsletters, I've never seen anywhere else I've worked. Like the amount of opens and clicks and views and just even purchases from email, like that's a community that's just completely tied into what we were doing.
Yeah.
And so we knew we had this secret sauce and people were coming back over and over again. And it all started with really knowing our audience. Like we had so much insight and clarity into who our customer was. And we, again, like stayed focused on that person. It was so easy to be like, we should start to talk to women, or we should start to talk to this type of person or this type of person. And instead we're like, nope, we know this is our guy. We know what he's interested in. And we're going to build content and experiences and partnerships and collabs that speak to him. And maybe they're like slightly aspirational, right? So they're driving him and his culture a little bit forward. But at the end of the day, like they're going to resonate and they're going to hit. And that was always the like starting point for anything we did. And we had amazing people who were tapped into the right people and the right brands and the right kind of like cultural moments and ideas that were happening. And that's how we started any collaboration we did, any partnership we did, any story we did, truly. And like such a good place to start from.
What's the right balance of aspirational? Like you want to be a little cooler than your audience, but you don't want to be like Satisfy running. You don't want to make them feel inadequate. How do you walk that line?
Yeah, I just saw Satisfy had like a Fugazi quote yesterday and I was like, oh, anti-commerce and commerce. It's and I love Satisfy.
Yeah.
Aspirational almost makes it sound like it's like unattainable. And I don't think that's what it is. I think if you think about, take a step back and just think about yourself as a person, like who you engage with on the internet and the shows you watch and what you read, we're always pulled into these worlds that are a little bit outside of our reach in some ways, or a little bit outside of like our every single day experience. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's living in a fantasy. It's living in an idea. It's living in inspiration. And that's how I always think about it, is like, especially now that I'm at a CPG brand, I think it's so easy to be like, we need to appeal to everyone and be mass. And that means we have to dumb down everything. And I don't think that that's the case at all. I think people are so much smarter than we give them credit for, so much more interesting, so much more multifaceted. Like no one is one thing. And so to me, the aspirational piece really is just like knowing your audience, knowing who they're engaging with. At a brand like Huckberry, we were lucky because so many of the employees represented the audience already. Yeah. So it was just kind of internal polling sometimes of like, who are we following on Instagram? Who are we reading? Like what articles are standing out to us? What films do we love? What brands are we like inspired by? And more often than not, those resonated with our audience, which is such a nice synergy to have. I use the word synergy, that's horrible, but like such a great place to be. And so I think you always want to be slightly ahead. You don't want to be out of touch. You don't want to feel unattainable. Like that's always the guardrail. But I think that the bar is actually higher than most people think it is.
Yeah. Talk to me about one or two of those really, really successful content moments that you did. When you think back to that time, what's like the defining story that you were able to tell that maybe marked a turning moment for Huckberry?
I think there are two. Like one is the Brad Leone collaboration and partnership we did. Because that ended up living on for so long. Like the brand worked with Brad so many times from there, did content series with him, brought him back for future collabs, like stayed a friend of the brand. And he was such a good personality for us. But that was a really great experience of like finding a person who, like, to me, these partnerships, it all comes down to who the collaborator is, whether that's the brand or the person. And Brad made that entire thing, like his personality and his kind of enthusiasm for the idea and for creating product that actually like fit his life and his role. And then wanting to be part of the content creation and wanting to be part of the storytelling made that something because it felt organic and real and natural. But it also showed me that like there's a world where commerce and content live directly next to each other and don't have to fight with each other. And I think that's one of those tensions that people always struggle with, which is that if we're doing storytelling, it's not going to sell things. And if we're selling things, we're not doing storytelling. And I don't think that that's necessarily the case, right? Like I think you can have both, where you're creating product that serves a purpose, that speaks to the person you're working with or the brand you're working with, that drives revenue or even drives revenue outside of that product just because you get people engaged and thinking about something. So with Brad, we created an apron, and maybe the apron sold out in a week, but then people were like, oh, they have knives, they have this wax trucker jacket, they have this. I'm just going to be a Huckberry fan now. And I think that content and commerce works so well together when the idea is just solid and there's a lot of enthusiasm and passion behind it. So that was one that kind of unlocked it for me. And I just think the content we created and the product we created out of that was super fun. And then the Coors partnership, because that was kind of our first really big one at Huckberry with like a large kind of corporation, I would say. which, you know, is always scary when you're a brand that's growing rapidly and figuring out what you want to do. And you're like, are we selling out by working with cores? And we want to make sure it's not just licensing because so many people are doing that. So how do we make it more special? And that became basically this 3-part storytelling series where we told stories around 3 different folks who kind of lived this idea we created called the golden hour. And this idea of like, after a day of hard work and living, like cracking open that fresh beer at golden hour. And Huckberry is a brand that like we always celebrate golden hour as an idea. So it was so natural to what we were. Like that was core to the brand strategy. And the cores ended up being an amazing partner. Like they let us have a lot of leeway on product creation and how we wanted to bring our product to life with their colors and kind of going back into their archives and finding like old logos and branding and kind of using that, which I thought spoke really well to our customer who's always vintage shopping and looking for inspiration from the past. But then also they gave us like full creative runway on the stories we wanted to tell and the people we wanted to work with. And those came together so nicely. Like I'm really, really proud of the work we did on those and the videos that came out of that. And those stories still are things I turn back to and look at as inspiration now.
Yeah, man, so many things I want to jump back to. So the idea of golden hour, I love that you said that because, you know, we haven't talked about this at all, but the minute you said that, I was like, oh, that's basically the art direction for Huckberry. Like that is what the visuals embody. And that is the feeling that you get anytime you walk, you know, you go through any of the content. It's that feeling that you get at that magical moment of the day. So I love that as like a guiding light that your team was probably following. It just is totally so spot on. And then the thing that jumped out to me, one, Brad almost being the embodiment of that perfect level of aspirational, like just approachable enough. And maybe I'll get you, for those that don't know, can you explain who he is?
Yeah. So Brad Leone is former Bon Appetit chef, video guy, has a gregarious, amazing personality made for TV, has become kind of a media personality in the food space, has written a cookbook, has been on multiple different shows and created his own YouTube series. And I think you're right. Like Brad's personality is so down to earth and human that like anyone would connect with it almost. Like you just want to hang out with the guy, which like is great for us. But at the same time, professionally trained chef, like, you know, knows his stuff in the kitchen, knows his, like has a fashion sense, has a sense of style and taste and curiosity. And those 2 things combined are great. Like having the human element made all the difference there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like there's style, there's like something really compelling and interesting about him, but you also feel like you could throw back a beer with him and, you know, he would totally want to chat with you if you ran into him out in public.
And I think that's part of it is like using real people, which like everyone's a real person, I guess. But like, you know, it's like someone who isn't coming across as like they're trying to sell anything other than who they are. And I think that authenticity, like people see right through that sometimes, or like almost all the time, I would say, where you see all the time, especially in fashion, like brands hire like chief creative consultant and it's like Pharrell Williams for whoever. And it's like, you know, I'm like, what are they actually doing at that brand versus just being a name that they're paying money to? And I think it's the same way with so many of these brand partnerships you see or sponsorships where like I've never wanted to use the word sponsorship for anything we do. If we're doing sponsorships, unless it's like, you know, a sports league or something, to me, I'm like, you're throwing money to have your name attached with someone else's name. And there's nothing beyond that level of depth there. Like all it is that that's a name that we know people like. We're going to give them some money. They're going to wear a logo on them of our company. And that's the level we'll get from them. Or maybe we'll make a video that will have no substance to it. And I've always felt like if there's not true partnership and collaboration, if they don't want to talk to the brand and be in the weeds with you on product, like for me now, it's like tasting our food, talking about food. If they don't have a passion for food, like they have no role working with us, and that's okay. But that's how you find the right people who unlock that magic.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing that you talked about, and I think this is absolutely, I think this is like the crux or the core of what we're talking about, is that overlap of content and commerce. I was thinking about this. You said something earlier about email, and when I worked in-house at a brand, we were constantly trying to find this balance of like, is this a brand email or is this a product email? And I, at the time, was working with a really incredible VP of e-com, a guy named Braden Hepner, who we've actually had on the podcast before. And he was like, don't think of them as 2 different things. They can be one and the same if we're doing it right. And I think you guys really captured that formula at Huckberry, putting you on the spot, but how would you define that formula? What does it take to capture that overlap of content and commerce?
It's hard because now whenever I go to any brand, they're like, how do we do what Huckberry was doing on email? And I'm like, you can't, honestly. Like that's my answer because they spent 10 years, now 15 years, building this repetition of 3 emails a week. Every email is going to have product, it's going to have story, and it's going to have like links to things you might be interested on the internet. And like that's kind of the formula in some ways, right? Like if you've read Huckberry emails, you kind of see it as a digest. It's a newsletter. And they trained their audience to expect it to come.
Yeah.
And then like when it would come, they would read the entire thing. They would shop product. They would go to stories. They would engage in all these different ways. And to me, that's just like building repetition in your brand. So like consistency, where you can't just decide overnight, we're going to be doing content now and then do it for 6 months and then go back to doing products, because then your customer's like, okay, well, that was a flash in the pants. So I think consistency is huge. Like if you stand for it, start to do it and put it out there in your emails and make it part of your strategy, but make it part of how the brand operates. And then I think the other piece is just, like creating a space where it feels right for the brand. So for Huckberry, our world involved the outdoor guy and all the inspirations and kind of aspirations he had, and how do we build that out for him, starting with product and then going into activity and adventure and that mindset, which led into food and drinks and culture and all of that. For a brand like Brahmi now, is that Italian culture? Is it cooking and recipe tips? Is it just like lighthearted hits of a little bit of La Dolce Vita and the good life? Like how do we bring it is like one of the things we're talking about a lot. And then how do we not end up being an annoying spam emailer where we're just sending you these crazy long emails that you don't want to deal with? And I think that's always on my mind, is like how much is too much?
Yeah.
And when is it okay just for it to be a simple product email versus a longer brand email versus both combined? But I think that you're right. Trying to put it in a box doesn't make sense, because inevitably content and brand and product are all so intertwined. They kind of become the same thing if you do it right.
Yeah. Yes. And to your earlier point, sometimes you do just need like a one-off product email, like a launch. This is now available. And those emails can perform so well. Totally. But if you only do that, you're not going to get it. Having that blend, you kind of described, like there's value. So there's like links to other things that are relevant that you want to know about. There's entertainment through content. And then there's product that feels so closely related.
Yeah.
What I've seen, and I'm wondering how you guys tackled this, one of the big challenges is usually you want to have product integrated into the content, but the timing can be so brutal. Sometimes you're filming something months in advance, you feature a product and then maybe it's sold out by the time that content comes, or it hasn't landed by the time that content's meant to go live. How did you guys navigate that?
Well, we operated on some very short timelines. That was part of it for sure. Like talk about quick turn. We were sometimes like weeks in advance was at the maximum, which I don't recommend to anyone necessarily. But I think part of it is being okay with the fact that the product, the special product, might sell out, and that's okay. To me, it was never about like, yes, you need people to get the product, but like if it sells out of a collaboration, it's a special, unique thing you're doing. Like it's done its job completely, to be completely honest. Like that's what it's there to do. And then that's okay, because you still have the story and the content piece behind it that's driving people's interest and engagement. And there's other things available for them, or they're going to come back the next time and definitely not miss out. And then you're driving repeat purchase behavior, which is awesome. So to me, it's not being so precious about it. Like it's okay for everything not to do everything. And it's okay to have your product sell out. Like who would be unhappy about that? As long as you feel good about the content that's supporting it. I think that that's a huge piece of it.
I think there are brands that really understand the value of content, and some that for some reason they're so afraid because they think it's a big spend, or they think it's a lot of time. What do you think is the impact of an investment in content, and how do you make that case when you're, maybe moving to a new employer?
It's a great question. So I think the first thing is like, it doesn't have to be expensive. I can speak from experience of like, even when I started Huckberry, our budgets were like $0 basically. Yeah. But at Rudy's, we were operating off of shoestrings. And to me, all that meant was that we had to have better ideas. Like we had less budget. We just needed to be more creative with our ideas and how we did it. And it doesn't mean not paying photographers and DPs and directors and videographers at all. It just means you might be hiring friends and families as talent. You might be kind of shooting on the fly on certain things. You might have less crew and staff, and people might have to be extra hands, but like also your ideas had better be very creative, because that's how you're gonna be able to execute them. And then when I go in now, I spend a lot of time talking about how content isn't just storytelling, right? It's like, yes, that's a huge piece of it, but it also building that brand world is how you build long-term brands. It truly is like the end of the day, what sets you apart from all of your competitors is like, do people care about you and remember you? Because yes, like everyone wants the better product, right? They want the better kind of like best option possible. Everyone's trying to recreate the wheel. Everyone's trying to create the best thing out there. But you need to have something else for people that they care about, that they think about, that they come turn back to. And I think like when you're building brands, that's what content's magic is for. It's for getting people to build affinity towards your brand, to know what you stand for, to engage with you, to think about you, to remember you. And that's kind of its long-term role. I think content for content's sake is a waste of money for sure.
Mm.
But if it's tied into your larger brand goals, then it has magic and purpose and it really, really does serve it. It might just not be, and I always tell like all the CMOs I work with, like who all know this, right? But like in 6 months, we're probably not gonna see the result of this. We're thinking about long-term brand when we do this. And that has to be okay. And we all have to agree that that's the vision, because if it's not, we are wasting our money truly.
Yeah. Yeah. It can get derailed when someone comes in and they're like, well, I didn't see the return on this.
Yeah.
And the expectation has to be, it's going to take time and it might not be perfectly attributable.
Completely. And like, I totally understand we live in a world where like quick return is really important. And like, beyond that, like we're not in a place where like, it's not the Harry's and early days of the Uber of X anymore, where you can just like lose money and spend infinite amounts of money on advertising and marketing and just kind of, that's okay. Like brands need to make money and you have to be successful and have positive EBITDA now. And I do think content is part of that mix, and being responsible about how you spend it and how you create it and how you do it. I'm the steward of that for my brands. And I think that that's such an honor and privilege, but like also it takes a lot of explaining and work and trust in the process.
And you did get to come up in those glory days of like, let's just do a bunch of content and see what happens.
For
and
sure.
When I think about these campaigns we're talking about, it is a time when like authenticity was a word we were throwing around all the time. We were always trying to create authentic content. It tend to live on, on blogs or on YouTube. And then I'd say in the last like 6 years or so, we really saw a shift as TikTok came up, as our attention spans got shorter, and we moved away from almost this like beautiful storytelling to these little like content bites. I don't even know if you could call them. I mean, they truly are content. There's no narrative arc to them.
No.
We became accustomed to getting served things that had absolutely no start, middle, and end. And I think just in the last 6 months or so, we're starting to see narrative come back again, but it's more highly produced. Like if you look at all the cinematic stuff that's happening in social right now, which is beautiful and I welcome it. But it's more scripted and less documentarian than what we think of as like the Huckberry content formula.
Totally.
Do you think there's still an appetite for documentary content?
I do. I think that these things serve different roles, and that's okay. Like the quick TikTok, Instagram Reels world, like it definitely has a purpose. It's escapism in a way, right? It's like that I've had a hard day, a long day. I'm just going to scroll for a little bit and engage and see things. And like they kind of stick, they kind of don't. Brands are part of that. People are part of that. You get little bits of it. And like there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, I still am a core believer that people love story. Like there's a reason we love the movies and books and all these other narrative arc components. Like I will always turn back to story. And it doesn't mean it has to be an hour long or 30 minutes long. It can be 10 minutes and have an amazing story. It can be 5 minutes and have an amazing story. But I do think that like in the right context, people's attention can still go out, like clock onto a 5-minute story, a 10-minute story. They have the capacity to watch that. People watch movies all the time. Like, you know, it's not this crazy idea. So as attention spans shift, I think it just becomes the role of channel a little bit and then how you capture them. If you're trying to put story into Instagram Reels, like good luck, it's not happening. But if you can get people to YouTube or a site or serve it up in a different way, you hold a film series, whatever it is, like there's still a purpose and role for it. I don't have a problem with it's funny you talk about it because I've been seeing so much of the glossy, polished content recently. Like I think of ALD, like Aimee Leon Dore a lot when I think of that because their brand world is amazing. Like they've done such a good job building it out, but their content is so clean and so crisp and beautiful. And there also is still a place for real documentary to your point. I actually think Huckberry is doing a pretty good job with it still. Like if you look at the Dirt series, if you look at like Shop Class that they did with him, they do the homes, like there's a world of the real that people still want to see. And I think people really connect with that still. So I do think there's a role.
Yeah. I mean, in prepping for this, I went down a deep rabbit hole of watching a bunch of Dirt videos and like it sucked away an afternoon. I was like, where did the time go? I didn't want to stop watching. And that's like a testament to good editing, but also like great personality, and it moved at a great pace and it was relevant to my interests.
Completely.
It's a combination of things. You mentioned you still think Huckberry is doing a great job. Who else do you think is doing a great job? Like who are you watching?
Yeah, totally. I think like Huckberry's Dirt is best in class, obviously. I think people
Yeah.
have seen that and feel that, but like such a great idea, but also like the perfect host and the perfect story and the perfect places and just
Yeah.
it's so human and real at its core, which I love. I think with their home series and shop class series with Dean Petty, like those are also really great and speak to the Huckberry consumer and what they're interested in. I've been really kind of in love with A24 recently
I mean,
and
they're killing it.
crushing it. And part of it for me is like, yes, like the Marty Supreme marketing was insane and wonderful, and they recorded a fake Zoom call with Timothy Chalamet, and like, how creative and amazing is that?
Yeah.
But also, like, when in history has anyone ever cared about a movie studio? And now we care so much about this movie studio, and
They're
anytime
branding a
releases
studio.
exactly. And I think about that a lot for Brahmi because I'm like, they're my example of like an industry that didn't have this, and I want to be them. I want to be the one that's disrupting the industry in the way they are. And I think that they do such a good job, like from a product standpoint. Like, they've made this amazing product shop. They have an amazing membership program. They do such good marketing for their different films, and they have so many different films they're doing all the time. And the way they use people and personas, and just like they've built a world in a totally different way than I thought was possible. I think in the outdoor industry, there's still like amazing stories being told. Obviously, like of all the industries, outdoor is always going to have the best characters.
Yeah.
I'm very much interested in the ACG comeback right now. Like,
I mean,
the
talk about
train-
world
Oh
building.
my God, yeah. Exactly. And I'm curious to see what they do with it. And I mean, Nike has the money and the backing to do it, but like
Yeah.
so far I'm like they've done such a great job just drawing people's attention back to it.
This is gonna be a controversial opinion. I'm not that excited about the product yet, but I haven't said that out loud yet. I'm not excited about the product yet, but I am excited about the marketing.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think there's so many other disruptor brands in like especially the trail space, which is close to my heart. I've got like a
Same.
big 25K coming up. Yeah. And I'm with you. I'm like the product looks like what I would expect from Nike kind of.
Yeah.
But the world building and storytelling, they have the potential to do the Nike magic there, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, for sure. I've been like watching a lot of the Black Crows videos recently, like the ski brand. I just got a new pair of Black Crow skis and have been, it's
You're
much
in it.
time. I'm out there a lot. But like, I kind of love what they're doing. Like, they've been making films and these crazy stories, and like, they're so out there and just like such a great place in doing it. And then the last one I was thinking about was like actually just creators and content creators. And I think in the food space, you've got some really interesting folks like the Molly Bazes of the world, the Alison Romans of the world, who
Yes.
talk
Two
about
faves.
making like real videos, right? Who like let you into their life and their world.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
resonates
Especially as new
so
moms,
deeply.
you're
Exactly.
in
Yeah.
it with them.
Yeah, totally. And I've like been fans of them forever. So I've been following them for years now. And I just love how they're doing content. Like Alison Roman's Home Videos is one of my favorite series on the internet.
Same.
And yeah, it's just like such a magical, real thing or seemingly real. And talk about like watching 20-minute cooking videos. Like I do that every time they drop.
Yeah. One of my best celebrity meetings was Allison and I both got booted out of the White Horse Tavern in Austin, not because we did anything wrong, but because it shut down and we were standing outside. And I have a photo of us like at 2 in the
Lovely.
morning. And I was like, this is my best celebrity encounter of all time.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
good. It's like, this
And
is
Molly
the
is-
one. Yeah.
Yeah, Molly is absolutely killing it right now. And fun fact, we are going to have her CMO of AO on the show this
Amazing.
season. So,
I mean, they're
yeah.
doing her like guest appearances at Whole Foods when they launched. I just thought was such a smart idea, and they're a great one who we've looked at for sure, and who I'm keeping keeping tabs on because I think they're doing such an awesome job.
I love that. All right. Well, maybe this segues right into another question, which is just where else are you looking for inspo these days?
Right now, I actually keep finding myself kind of going to the past, which is interesting. So like one of our big ideas at Brahmi is this idea of innovating backwards. And it's just about like, and I kind of like really believe it's like, we don't have to recreate the wheel to create new ideas, right? Like you can like take the wheel and hone it, or you can like make new combinations and innovate that way. So I've been looking a lot at like old films, old ads, old commercials, and just like looking at like kind of when we were in a kind of maybe less busy kind of like hectic digital world, what that looked like, and like what the role of copy was and what the visuals looked like. And I've just been being really inspired by things in the past. The other thing that I just like, I recommend this to anyone who I am mentoring or talking to or who's like new in their career, like go into the real world, like get off of the internet for inspiration. The internet is great. You can find all kinds of good swipe for a mood board on Instagram or Pinterest or any of these places. But like you need to be in the physical world to see how people live and interact and see like real things. And it unlocks so much. And like that's where I go for a run and I have new ideas, or I see something that like a color green that I'm like, oh my God, that color green is so vibrant and bright and like mossy. I want to like capture that and bring that back with me. Or, you go to a store and you see like this interaction happening or how brands are showing up in a space or whatever. And like all of that to me is where you kind of find the magic.
My favorite kind of swipe source these days is actually walking around in Portland and seeing a lot of the protest art, the posters for like bands or comedy shows that are just stapled to the telephone poles. Like I have files and files of photos of incredible kind of DIY art that we're bringing into our ideas and work. And I love the idea of looking to the past as well. We're pals with the guys that run the Outdoor Rec Archive, which is like an incredible database of old catalogs and marketing materials from the outdoor industry in Salt Lake City at Utah State. And it's such a good resource. Like we all need to be tapping into archives more, I think.
Completely. And like they were doing crazy things if you look at the Outdoor Archive, like the old catalogs. Oh my gosh, talk about like out there. It was amazing back when like hiking and backpacking and trail running and all these things were like these kind of cult, kind of like weirdo sports, not these
so fringy.
Right? Exactly. And I kind of love that where I'm like, oh my God, you got to be weird. Like being weird is at the end of the day kind of my vibe a lot is I'm like, how can we show up a little bit differently and be a little bit weird?
Yeah, that's a great brief. Okay, we talked about looking to the past. Let's talk about looking to the future. You're thinking about content all the time. What do you think is coming down the line? What does the future of content look like?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit more of the same. Like I think you're going to see these ping pongs between short bursts and deep story. Like I really think that that's going to continue. And there's going to be a role for both for any brands. And you kind of have to figure out like what those are for you, but both of them have a role for sure. And I still think it comes down to like having enough gall to have a real POV. If you have something to say as a brand that's real and tied into what you believe in and what you provide for people, you can have any kind of content coming and flowing out of that. Like, I don't think that will ever change. And that's what I kind of try to remind myself is like, no matter what the future of AI content looks like, AI creation looks like, no matter what happens with our attention spans in terms of short bursts or whatever, what is our POV? What do we actually believe in? And how do we make things that feel real and authentic to that? And that, again, it goes back to the Molly Baz, Alison Romans of the world, the Dirts of the world. Those are authentic, real feeling POVs, human POVs. And I think like that's something that people are always going to love and look for.
Yeah, I agree. And it's so wild how many of my guests will actually come back to that, but then how hard it is to stay true to a point of view IRL.
100%. And I think like trying to focus, right? Like one of the biggest challenges that any brand right now is like, how do you not do 10,000 things at once? Because it's kind of what our world is asking us to do. It's like, we need to be in every social space. We need to be having emails every single day. We need the site to refresh every single day. We need to launch product every single day. Like you have so much noise happening around you. And how do you create focus within that of the things that actually are going to drive your business forward, but also drive the customer forward and get them to pay attention? And I think like that's like the hard part of the job, right? It's like there's so many ideas out there. There's so much amazing content out there. It's how do you focus it in a way that makes sense?
I mean, you're still pretty new at Brahmi, so you're still probably like doing the culling. Where are you actually focusing your energy as far as channels goes?
So I'm still in like process building phase for sure. Like coming into a new brand, that's always going to be the focus. We're about to go do our first really big kind of asset library photo video shoot of the year. I'm really focusing actually on a little bit more of the Substack space. Like I'm really interested in what's happening there. When I look at social, like we'll have a beautiful Instagram presence. It's our mood board. We'll have TikTok, obviously, to speak to our audience. I think there's something really beautiful about being able to use the written word. I think people are coming back to Substack in a huge way. Like I've been reading so much about how Substack is actually the new kind of place for photographers to share their work, which I find so interesting. Yeah. And I actually think there's gonna be a lot of magic there for a brand like us where we can tell a little bit more of the story. People are going there to have a little bit more of their attention captured. They're going to spend more time there. And then beyond that, it's like, what does recipes look like? How do we do that in a way that's unexpected? Have a lot of ideas around teaching Americans to cook the Italian way and having some fun with that, which I think would be really great.
Yeah, love the Substack shout out. I do every January, I do my predictions for kind of the overlap of marketing, brand, outdoor, active, wellness, and the Substackification of marketing was kind of my big shout. Like one, brand showing up on Substack, but two, Substack almost informing how we do our regular marketing emails and doing more behind the scenes, background story, bringing the personalities of founders up front and center more.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. And it
Me
really
too.
aligns with the content that we've been talking about.
Yeah. I think the question then is like, how do you integrate Substack into all of these other places? Because it's kind of a standalone thing right now.
Yeah.
But it's funny too, because you mentioned the BTS thing. We've been talking about that a lot internally. And back to your idea of like things becoming a little bit more cinematic and kind of like, kind of beautiful. There's a lot of discussion internally right now, and I've been hearing this from a lot of my friends in the industry of just like people loving BTS and loving that kind of like look behind the curtain of brands right now.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that is going to it's going to be a huge thing this year.
For sure. It's that new version of authenticity that we're all looking for.
Totally.
Okay, I have a final question that I love to wrap up with, which is just, what is the best piece of brand or marketing advice that you've ever received?
I have 2 rules I kind of live by. So I was lucky enough to have Mickey Drexler come talk to me when I worked at Rothy's. Our founder had worked for him for a long time, and they were long-term buds. And
Icon.
Yeah, icon, like so much great advice. And one of the things that I took away from that was he spent the entire time talking about people and about how one bad egg can kind of spoil like an entire team, and really being focused on prioritizing people over everything else, no matter what you're doing as a brand, which I like truly believe in. And then also just being kind. Like at the end of the day, throw it all out the window and be kind to the people around you, to yourself. And I find that to be like, it's something I think about a lot because it's so easy to not do that. And I find it like, that's how you create that human connection that creates amazing work, but also like makes your life more enjoyable. So that's a huge one for me, is just focusing on people and how can I make their life easier, better, more successful? How can I build teams that love to work together? And then if things aren't working, like I have to be the one to change that, and I have to step in and immediately do it and not let it fester and linger. And then the last one that I always talk about with people who come to me for advice, like no one actually knows what they're doing until it works. And I think that's like very real. Like,
yes,
I don't even like try to pretend like I'm an expert. Like I've been doing this for a long time, but I'm still learning on the fly all the time.
It's changing every day.
Yeah. But that's how creativity works. Like, you don't know it's a good creative idea until it works. And that's why it's creative, because it's a new and novel approach. Like new ideas take guts. And that's what I tell people is like, have conviction in your ideas. They may not happen. Like as a creative, everyone knows like your idea is going to get killed 9 times out of 10. But if you have conviction in your ideas, like one of them is going to work and it's going to stick, and that's going to become your thing, and you can latch onto that. And just like being okay with the fact that like we're all kind of figuring it out. Like marketing is still a dark art, even though we have a lot of science behind it now. I still truly believe that. I think as long as you go back to human truth, like then you're kind of figuring it out. But just being okay to have conviction and know that creativity lives in this kind of ethereal space.
Yeah, and that you're not going to have that win unless you keep trying over and over and over again a whole bunch of different things.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got to be able to stick it out in this career for sure.
Yeah. I love it. Well, so far you have. Well done. I love seeing the arc that you've taken. I learned so much in this call. Danny, thank you so much for your time. Thanks. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great talking to you.
That was Danny Segal, VP of Brand and Culture at Brahmi. You can find links to his website and Brahmi's website and all of the incredible Huckberry content we talked about over in the show notes. One quick thing before the credits. If you like My Best Campaign, you might like the new content series my team and I are doing. Every other week, we're sharing the latest campaigns we love and why we think they work. Find that over on Instagram at mondaycreative.co. My Best Campaign is brought to you by Monday Creative. It's produced by Emily Hybeck and hosted by me, Amanda Lee Smith. Our sound engineer is Andrew Bagazbes, and our new theme music is by composer and filmmaker Shimon Machida.